a while since I've seen you. Always cameras in my face when you're here. Good morning. While the rest of you are getting settled in, I'd like to welcome you to the Tuscarora Intermediate Unit 11 in McVeytown, Pennsylvania. I'm Dr. Sean Kovac. I'm the Executive Director for the Intermediate Unit. And just like to take a brief second to kind of orient you as to what kind of public institution an intermediate unit is. An intermediate unit is exactly as it states in the name. We're an intermediary between the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the school districts to which we're assigned via law. And Tuscarora Intermediate Unit has 9 school districts in Mifflin, Juniata, Huntington, and Fulton counties to which we're assigned. And we provide services to those districts at the school district's request and provide services back to those as assigned to us by the Department of Education. And we are a service agency. And our superintendents within the Tuscarora Intermediate Unit came to us with concerns regarding charter schools that they would like to present to the public in general, and asked us if we would be able to provide facilities and the technology to get their word out. And being a service agency, we said, sure, we will be glad to help you with that. And here we are today with a press conference on charter schools. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Jim. Jim Estep, thank you. It's been a long morning, folks. Jim Estep to the podium. Sorry, Jim.
No problem, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking IU11 and Dr. Kovac for agreeing to host today's press conference. It's just another example of the way this IU provides its services and resources to help this region's school districts each and every day. Thank you, Sean. My name's James Estep, and I'm the superintendent of the Mifflin County School District. We're a large rural school system, and we are located approximately 15 miles east of here. We service about 5,000 students, and we have approximately 640 professional and support staff. All of us today that are here represent rural school systems, but the problems created by the current laws on cyber and charter schools impact all school districts. For this reason, I'd like to read a statement from a friend and colleague from the League of Urban Schools before we discuss how this deeply flawed legislation impacts taxpayers and school districts in our local area. Our friend, Superintendent Stephen Rodriguez of the Pottstown School District says this: "The League of Urban Schools, a caucus of PASA, stands in solidarity with PARS on many issues, but most ardently on the call to reform the way cyber and charter schools are funded." Now, he's mentioning PARS and PASA. We have representatives of both organizations here today, and both of those organizations, along with Education Voters PA, who has representatives here as well, were instrumental in encouraging us to get our message out. Not since British soldiers roamed free on Pennsylvania soil has there been a better example of taxation without representation. Cyber and charter schools take tax dollars with no accountability, no oversight, and often terrible results. They make a profit at the expense of our children, and our legislators have been letting them get away with it for 2 decades. Communities would be outraged if they understood how many millions of cyber charter tax dollars went to advertising, lobbying, and profit margins. The time for funding reform is right now. Those are Stephen's words. But I believe he speaks for all of us. With that said, let's talk about the tax dollars being siphoned away from my district, which is just one of 9 public school systems in this IU region. Since 2010, Mifflin County taxpayers have forked over $14.4 million, and with another estimated $2 million in tuition bills expected in the current fiscal year, our community will have spent almost $16.5 million. All because our legislature, under the influence of one of the most well-financed lobbying groups in the country, comprised of wealthy venture capitalists seeking to make a profit off of a public institution whose founders never intended to see it become a vehicle to enrich private profiteers. The real irony here is that at Mifflin County, we already offer online and blended learning programs to nearly 500 students through our Alpha and MCO programs, which my colleague Chris Gill will discuss shortly. I shudder to think just how much more burden our taxpayers would shoulder for cyber and charter tuition if we didn't run our own programs. Suffice it to say that it would likely double the current tax burden just to pay for cyber and charter tuition. This week kicks off School Choice Week. Raise your hands if you know someone whose parents chose to send them to a private or parochial school in your lifetime. I have no problem with that. The question I have is, did you pay for that choice they made? Or did they pay the tuition on their own? Let's remember that as everyone speaks today, that now the state legislature wants you to pay for that education. I know many people have heard the slickly produced radio, digital, and TV ads run by the cyber and charter school lobby. In these ads, they always say they can offer your kids a free, high-quality education. Let me tell you, it's not free. You're paying for it each and every time you get your school tax bill. And because of the way in which the law is currently written, it guarantees that that price will continue to grow with each passing year. Now, their lobbyists will tell you, with all that slick advertising that you're paying for, mind you, that your children will benefit from their programs. And perhaps for some, that may be true. But for many others who leave the regular public system, that's not the case. Studies have shown that students who attend cyber charter schools lose the equivalent of almost a year's worth of instruction in math and nearly the same in reading and language arts. A colleague of mine, Dr. O'Donnell, is going to touch on the impact that that's had on some students he's seen returning to our district. The fact is, the true benefactors of cyber and charter education in many cases are the private, for-profit companies, their shareholders and CEOs that run many of these schools. Your tax dollars from all 67 counties in this Commonwealth have enabled profiteers and CEOs from what is now a multi-billion-dollar industry to purchase things like 10,000 square foot mansions in Palm Springs, private planes, lavish trips to luxury resorts, and other perks that none of us in this room will ever experience in our lifetimes. If you're okay with this and you don't mind your tax dollars paying for things like this for people who are already wealthy to begin with, God bless you. I'm not. I'm fed up. I'm fed up with struggling each year to make a budget balance. I'm fed up with worrying about how I can maintain the programs that matter to Mifflin County's parents and kids. I'm fed up with having to worry about cutting teaching positions and increasing class size to make a balanced budget. I'm fed up with worrying about having to cut administrative positions and then not having enough people to administer state mandates for reporting on various programs in our schools. I'm fed up with the notion that without the fortune of having gotten some grants temporarily to fund them, I might be forced to eliminate people and programs that focus on the mental health of some of our most troubled kids, thereby potentially impacting the safety of others when those grants go away. I'm fed up knowing that as we all begin to utilize our savings to keep the budget balanced, cyber and charter school savings accounts continue to grow off the hard-earned tax dollars our communities pay out each year. And those communities are often not really aware of how that money is spent and who ultimately benefits from it. Mostly, I'm fed up that year after year, some of our legislators who have recognized that this legislation is a real problem for taxpayers and have actually tried to introduce bills to start to fix the problem, ultimately never see those bills even considered in committee, let alone making it to the floor of the General Assembly. That's a real leadership problem in our legislature. And to me, it's indicative that some of our legislative leaders are actually culpable in perpetuating a problem that is so evident to so many and so costly to districts like mine. And then I have to wonder, how could that happen? Well, there's an answer to that too. Follow the money. Follow the money spent by cyber and charter lobbyists and the wealthy individuals and corporations who fund them. See whose campaigns they consistently contribute to. The answer will become clear. Joining us today are advocacy organizations like PASA, PARS, and Education Voters of PA. Those organizations have worked tirelessly to find solutions to this problem. They regularly reach out to legislators who try to help them build political will to fix the problem. PASA has even written 2 white papers outlining potential solutions for fixing it and made them available to the entire General Assembly. You'll hear from PASA and PARS and other organizations possibly today or further down the road. Again, my name's Jim Estep, and this is part of Mifflin County School District's story. As many of my colleagues join in today, I hope you'll listen. This problem affects each and every school district in its own unique ways. So please listen to their stories too. I'd like to bring Dr. O'Donnell up. And you can have Chris come up after.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Estep. Thanks for also helping to spearhead this with the other IU superintendents to get this out so that everybody understands truly what's happening. And so one of the things that I want to touch on is we talk about the quality of the cyber education, right? What students are returning with when they come back to a traditional brick and mortar setting. But before I do that, I just want to point out there is a lot of publicly available information on the Future Ready PA Index. And if you are not someone that's familiar with that, I encourage you to reach out, review the publicly available information. And what you're going to find is pretty alarming. For cyber charters, there are 15 that are reported. All 15 are targeted for school improvement in some way, shape, or form. All 15. 11 of those 15 have the highest level of support needed, or comprehensive support and improvement. That means that these schools are in the lowest 5% in the state, and at the secondary level would have a graduation rate less than 67%. So of all of the schools in the Commonwealth, cyber, brick and mortar, traditional, blended, these schools are in the lowest 5%. 73% of cyber charter schools are targeted for the most in-depth, in-need form of support. 14 out of 15 cyber charters didn't meet the standard benchmark for college and career readiness. 14 out of 15 didn't meet the statewide benchmark in proficient or advanced scores on ELA. 14 out of 15 didn't meet the statewide benchmark for proficient or advanced scores in math. So the quality is not equaling the investment of the taxpayer of our Commonwealth. And we see this. I'm the principal of Lewistown Elementary School in the Mifflin County School District. We see this when students transition back in. We see the cost of a parent hearing those advertisements and thinking, you know, this could be potentially a good thing for my child, only to find out when they transition back in that they are not where their age-appropriate peers should be, that their needs had not been met. And at that point, we do everything we can after they might not have been attending regularly, because just until recently, that wasn't tracked by Cybers. Now, we invest a lot of time and a lot of effort to take a child from where they are now to where they needed to be. And had they been in a system that had quality oversight, we would have caught that sooner. So children transitioning back in, we've recently had some students transition back in over a year behind in English language arts. So now we're doing everything we can to get that child back up to where they need to be. If you haven't reviewed the Future Ready PA Index, if you haven't done your homework on academics that are occurring or not occurring within cyber education, I encourage you to do so. But as bad as some cyber charters are, the fact of the matter is within public education, there are those of us that are attacking these challenges, and we're meeting them with our own proactive way. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gill, who helps to lead the Mifflin County School District Cyber Program. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chris Gill. My title is Alpha Program Supervisor in the Mifflin County School District, a job that I've held since January of 2015. I remember getting hired for the job and knowing on that first day that I really knew nothing. Coming straight out of the classroom and being hired by Mr. Estep, he gave me the task of running a blended program, and he said basically I had a complete green light to do anything that he felt I needed to do to turn this program into something that was worthwhile for the school district. So the first thing I thought I really should do is take a look around and find out really what is a cyber program. So the first thing I did was I looked around at the cyber programs around the state, and I, being a data geek, I took a look at at that time, 13 cyber programs and looked at their data, and I was really kind of like stunned at the poor performance of those 13 cyber programs. And I said, well, this is really terrible. I remember one school in particular, Agora, standing out with a 37% graduation rate. And I thought, well, wait a second, we don't want to replicate this. This is not the way to go. And really, we kind of had already started that. We were in our second or third year of a cyber program, and we were replicating that. We had students in a remote location. We were in a trailer next to our garage in a remote location next to our Academy of Science and Technology, our CTE program. We had students who were mostly full-time. We had most of those students did not come in. They were working mostly from home. So it was not a recipe for success. It was a recipe that the cyber programs around the state were really working on. So we kind of really looked around and said, well, what does our school district have to offer that would be a better solution? What else do we have? And then we realized we need to really talk to the kids and find out, why did you really not want to be in a traditional program? And that's when we started finding out some more information. We had 136 kids at that time that were in our cyber program, and really we quickly found out we had 136 reasons why kids did not want to be in the traditional program. And then that started guiding our decisions of what else we needed to offer. So we found out that really we had to kind of tailor or personalize that learning program for each kid. And so we quickly kind of flipped the script, and one of the first things we did is we found out really most kids did not need to become full-time or full online students. Most kids really wanted to stay in the traditional school program, but wanted something just slightly different. And that could really have been solved with maybe a part-time or a hybrid schedule where they could have one part-time or one online class, or they just wanted they needed a modified day. They had a health issue. They had a special sports program, like they may have been a gymnastics student, they had to travel, they had some other unique reasons. And so customizing their learning program really was the rationale for that. And so we could develop a personalized program that quickly to do that. And that's how we kind of started the program. Today, as of our enrollment today, we actually have in the Mifflin County School District 531 kids taking at least one online course. None of those kids are mandated to take an online course in our school district. All right, but we can customize any program for a kid, K to 12, and we can do that without without mandating any kind of online scenario. I'll go back to Agora, 37% graduation rate. They use the same curriculum that we use for our kids. And I'll use the graduation rate or the graduation index there too. When we started in 2015, our graduation rate for Mifflin County High School was around 87.5%. One of our goals was, how can we help the graduation rate of Mifflin County High School? By working on credit recoveries, which is one of our efforts, we have now been able to catch a lot of kids at the high school level, second half of the year, who may be getting close to failing a math class, let's say, for instance. If they're getting ready, if they're not doing well the second half of the year, they may be in a high-level math, like, oops, wait a second, I may be failing calculus. We can sign them up for a math class the second half of the year just so they don't fail that math credit. Those types of things that help them make sure they finish the year and pass and graduate. Last year's graduation rate, and it's been steady increase since 2015, last year's graduation rate was 93%. I know a lot of times the cyber charter schools like to say, well, we only get some of the worst kids that sign up for cyber charter schools. And that's why our graduation rates are low. That's just a crutch that they like to use. But you can have cyber programs in your traditional schools, and you can use them to create effective improvement for your graduation program, for your graduation rate as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do with your cyber programs in a traditional school setting to make good and effective improvements in your school district. That's it.
Good morning. I'm Mike Zanoble, Superintendent of Juniata Valley School District. I'm just going to go through some of the numbers that we have to deal with these charter schools. Currently, we have 22 students enrolled in charter schools at Juniata Valley. The estimated cost for Juniata Valley is $350,000 a year. Special education students in charter schools can cost the district over $25,000 a year. The average cost per student in charter schools for our district is almost $16,000 per year. We currently have 8 full-time students that attend our in-house cyber school at a cost of approximately $5,000 per student. We also find that many of our students who enter charter and cyber charter schools do so to avoid truancy issues. Also, many of the students who enter these institutions return to us having earned 0 or very few credits during their enrollment period in the charter schools. Thank you very much.
Dwayne Northcraft, Superintendent, Southern Huntington County. Southern Huntington County operates on an $18.4 million budget. In the 18-19 school year, we were able to reduce our total charter school tuition from $500,000 to $300,000 with the implementation of our own programs. We operate our own online program at approximately 1/2 the cost. I have Ramonda Zanoble with me. She's our online coordinator. Ramonda started this program a year ago, and we believe that with Ramonda's program, we can save $200,000 to $250,000 per year, and I brought her along to talk about the mechanics of that program. Thank you.
Hi again, I'm Ramonda Zanoble, the online coordinator at Southern Huntington County School District. And as Mr. Northcraft said, I started about a year and a half ago, and that was really the start of our program at Southern Huntington. We had a couple of kids here and there prior to that that were enrolling in some online classes for various reasons. And as Mr. Gill said earlier, when we started looking more closely at our program and the students that are taking the online courses, it's a variety of reasons. And as he said, we're looking at customizing that education to each student for whatever their reasoning may be. For example, we have many students who are full online students, but we also have students who are still attending the Career and Tech Center, but doing everything else online. We have students who are doing work experience, but still able to complete their other courses online. We also want to make sure that people are aware that saying a student is an online student doesn't mean that student is sitting at home by themselves every day with a computer in front of them. Over half of our online students are in the building all day, 3 to 4 days a week. They're in there working together, they're collaborating together, they're using the resources that we have available for them to further their education and to work together. So it's not just a student sitting at home alone working on their computer because they don't want to be at school. Like Mr. Gill said, they have various reasons for why they're going online. And they do want that feeling and that sense of community and that sense of belonging to the school district. They just have other things, like he said, outside sports or health issues or different concerns that don't allow them to be the traditional student for that school year or a couple school years. You know, and maybe they may transition back. And we've had some that have transitioned back to the building when a health issue subsides or whatever that reason may be. And allowing them to be part of our school and coming in every day and connecting with the students who are there and the teachers that are there when they do make that transition back makes it so much easier for them because they feel still like they're part of our district. So it's kind of a myth that they're just sitting at home and that they're disconnected. We still have those students very involved and very connected in the schools each day.
Thank you. And as a closing, we, as Southern Huntington, we want to make sure that we drive the point that we would like to see our students required to utilize our in-house program because we can provide a quality option and save quite a bit of money, taxpayer money. Thank you. Amy?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Amy Smith. I'm the superintendent with Mountain Area School District, and I echo the sentiments of what you've heard here today already, so I won't go back over a lot of that information. However, one of the areas that we have noticed with Mountain Area School District is the fact, well, I have someone here with me today, I'll be talking about the costs, but the fact of the truancy, even though it's back in the hands of the charter schools, to monitor attendance of the students on a daily basis. We find that is not occurring with the students who return back to our districts, and they have missed 30, 50 days, and it's back on our end to track the truancy of the students, go to the magistrate, and that's just not occurring at the charter schools that our students are attending. In addition to that, we're finding that students will leave. If they leave at the middle school level, they'll come back 2-3 years later in some cases, and they're still at the grade level they were when they left our districts. So that seems to be an issue that we're continually dealing with. Not only are we spending the money up front, we're also spending money to try and re-educate them, get them back on track where they need to be. So obviously our push is to try and keep the students in our school district. So in an effort to do that, we do have an online academy program. Mrs. Dawn Shields is our virtual academy coordinator, and she's going to talk a little bit about our program. And then Mrs. Carol Kaufman's, our Director of Business Affairs, is going to speak to the amount of money that we expend each year for charter school.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Again, my name is Dawn Shields. I've been with the Mount Union School District. This is my 11th year. My job has solely been as the coordinator of our online program. I ditto a lot of information that has already been presented. We also are taking a customized approach, looking at individual students. There's a million reasons why they want to look at a cyber option. We are taking that at the student level. What specific needs do they have? We look at remediation, acceleration. We also have an Associates in High School program now running. We at Mount Union are very fortunate. We've opened up our online program to all students. We're providing unique opportunities that we as a very small district couldn't offer students otherwise. Curriculum across the board and helps or hope that we're helping prepare them for their futures. What we see on our end when the students leave, they come back behind. They haven't attended. They don't really have any grades. It becomes an additional expense. Not only did we pay for their time when they're at charter or cyber, we then have to add additional funding to help remediate what they didn't get when they were there to try to get them caught back up. So at Mount Union, we're doing everything we can. We have students not sitting on a computer at home. They maintain regular contact here with us. We find that the most success comes for students that have regularly maintained contact in the building. All of our students come into the building. We proctor all tests. We're assuring that the students are the ones that are completing the work. There's no question about that. We're doing everything we can on our end. Carol.
My name is Carol Kaufman. I'm the Director of Business Affairs at the Mount Union Area School District. So the Mount Union Area School District is a very poor rural school district, and I say that we do have a fund balance, which we're grateful for, but our student population and our taxpayer base is such that our district receives district-wide free lunches, because when we look at the direct certification of our students, our student population, over 70% of them fall within direct certified, which means that they receive TANF monies, Medicaid, poverty level, income levels in their homes. So we operate a $22 million budget, and we work really hard to keep our tax base as low as possible. In saying that, every district in the state of Pennsylvania is, if you ask them the three things affecting their budget, they're going to tell you charter school, special ed, and retirement are probably going to be their top three. So I looked back over what we have paid for charter school tuition, and since 2010-11 school year, we've had a 307% increase in our bills for charter school. In 2010-11, we paid roughly $275,000 in charter school tuition. We are on target for this year to pay $1.1 million. That is a tremendous hit to our budget. In addition to that, when we look at the individual rate we pay for our students, charter schools bill us based on whether our students are identified as regular education or special education. Regular education students, we pay $9,600 per child. For our special ed students to attend charter school, it's $27,400 per child. That is significantly more than we are spending on our students that are in your buildings, in our buildings. And just as a comparison, I looked back to see how that's increased in the last 10 years. So our regular rate student amount increased 27% in the last 10 years. Our special ed rate increased 72%. So we're having like a double hit to the finances here. Charter school tuition is increasing, but our special ed costs are increasing. So it's kind of like it's doubling up, and it's really affecting our budgets. Currently at Mount Union, we have 75 students enrolled in charter schools. That is a decrease for this year. We have taken a very active approach. Mrs. Shields and Dr. Smith and our scheduling team have worked really hard to try and bring students back into our district. Out of the 75 that are currently attending charter school, a third of them are special ed. So, and the costs just continue to grow. So we definitely need to see some reform in place.
Thank you. In closing, for Mountain Area School District, in addition to all those costs, we also have the transportation costs to transport the students back and forth from the charter school on a daily basis. So I would love to see a reform, and the fact that we could look more at the funding of the charter school funding just be sent directly to the charter schools, and they budget their own. They bounce their own budgets, but if it continues the way it is, I think they definitely need to look at additional accountability over the charter schools to ensure that what is happening in those buildings are held accountable to the same level of standard that the public school districts are held accountable to. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. I'm Fred Foster, Superintendent, Huntington Area School District. I think I'll say good news. I may be the last speaker. So for those of you like me, after 40 minutes, get a little antsy. We should be about done. I'll somewhere be between Juniata Valley and Mifflin County, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Hit a few points. I don't want to be redundant, but I want to try to focus on a few things as it pertains to Huntington Area School District. My goal was to talk about the cost and inequalities within the charter school, brick and mortar, as well as cyber, as well as enrollment, transportation, and as Dr. O'Donnell mentioned, the assessment of the educational facilities as rated by the Future Ready Index. So I'm going to give you a couple averages as it impacts us for cost and impact to our district. Our reference is going to be the 18-19 school year. We spent $1.9 million. I'm going to round down, 1.95. I'm not going to 1.9 million, 18-19 for 143 children. So focusing on 18-19, obviously I didn't go back 10 years. We can provide all the data you need. But I'm going to give you a couple different averages and explain how we're using these numbers to show you what we think we need some reform action on. So 16,200 is the average when you heard regular ed and special ed from the charters and cybers. So 16,200 is the average we spend between regular ed and special ed, 9,600 for regular ed, 22,900 for special education. I'm going to ask you to remember those two categories, regular ed and special ed, because that's one of the points I want to make here today. 14,300 is the average when we take the 1.9 million we spent on our 143 children that we educated, plus the 100,000 for transportation. That doesn't factor into cyber, obviously, but it does impact the brick and mortars that we travel outside of our district of residence. So that's going to connect to transportation. I'm going to talk about district of residence and what we have to travel outside to provide. That's another inequity that I want to highlight, and I'll come back to that. 13,600 is when we take the 1.9 million, those of you who are checking my math, divide that by 143 of our children without transportation. Now I bring those, there's one more, I apologize. 12,100 average is what we spend on our cyber charters, which is about 524,000, and we have 43 children in cyber. So 3 of the 4 averages, 16.2, 14.3, and 13.6. What we spend on our 1,800 children in our district, our average spend as a district is 12,700. So we spend more money on people who go out of our district than we do within our own district. I'll just say that again. Maybe this is the question. How do we spend less on our own children that attend our facility versus what we spend, or I put what we're charged, to those that go to other educational facilities? Why is that, and how are these inequities? So I try to answer that again. We talked about charter. You heard brick and mortar and cyber. The two categories, regular ed, special ed. 9,600 for regular ed, 22,600 for us on special education. If you would like to attend our district, that every year, fail none, since I've been there 8 years, we usually get a multiple request of coming to your district. How does that work? We don't live within your residency. How does that work? And we have to explain to them about tuition. So if you'd like to come to our district, the state sets up this formula that's K-6 and 7-12. Again, regular ed, special ed, K-6, 7-12. So if you want to come to Huntington, it'll cost you, for elementary, it'll cost you $8,300. And for secondary, 7 to 12, it'll cost you $10,800. Now, that's you as a parent paying. That's not the district. We're going to send our children 10 miles outside of our district. We're going to pay anywhere between $96 and $22,600 beyond our resident. But if you want to send them to us, you as the parent have to pay. Now, I'm not advocating for the districts to have to pay that. I'm making a point about our $8,000 and $10,000 of what we get in tuition versus the $9,000 and $22,000 that we spend to send. So Jim mentioned, follow the money. My different approach is, I'm all for education. Wherever they want to attend, I'm all for school choice. But if you could at least balance out some equities within that money, I think that would certainly be appreciated through my lens. So I mentioned again, charter schools, regular ed, special ed districts, K to 6 and 7 and 12. You can't compare that. So charter costs that are paid by district, by our resident only, it ranges from $1,000 to $12,000 more per child. And again, that depends if they're regular ed or special ed. If you come in and you happen to be special education, you want to pay that tuition, there's no factor on the child's needs. It's just a flat rate of whatever grade you're in. I don't know how that makes any sense. So of the $1.9 million that we charge to pay to educate 143 children, that's a range of $250,000 to $500,000 more than we spend on the same 143 children that attend our district. Capiche? I got more questions than answers. So specifically looking at cyber, the fourth mention I averaged was 12.1, 12,186 per child to educate online. Again, I'll spend whatever it takes. Don't misinterpret my message here. And I think we all would. We spend on average $12,007, but we pay $12,100 for cyber. If we're going to provide a cyber education, which we do as well, we figure it costs about $5,000 per child. So I'd just like to know what's the other $7,000 that the cyber's, where's it going? Is it going to the building? Is it going to busing? Is it going to the cafeteria? I don't know where it's going. So I would just, that needs to be, in my opinion, as you've heard today, some accountability. My bottom line is cyber costs that we are charging are not justified or accountable to the taxpayers of the state. So my last point on cost and inequities is transportation. This impacts brick and mortar. We cannot ignore the fact that districts are required to, again, send our children 10 miles outside of our district. Yet if someone lives outside of our district, they have to pay out of their own pocket to join us. I don't want to get into an EITC conversation, but non-pubs, but I could definitely dive into that as well. And if you're in cyber, there's no limit to where, again, you can attend. There's no residency. You can go anywhere. I'd rather make ours a choice of options. Come to our academy if you can live anywhere in the state. We'll educate you, but that isn't an option. So finally, the assessment that Dr. Donald mentioned, we're impacted by 10 of the 165 cyber and charters in the state. Using the Future Ready Index, you did a much better job researching than I did. 6 out of 10 of those that our children have enrolled in are either in school improvement or TSI, CSI, I'm not getting into specifics there. 4, I couldn't even find any results on, so, I mean, kudos for what you were able to cover. So as an educator, it concerns me that if, again, I don't mind supporting schools of choice, choosing a facility that is in some form of school improvement. My question is, should that really be a choice? And finally, again, I'm not a legislator, nor do I want to be. I got to tell you, I don't know how difficult it is for you guys to make these decisions. I'd probably ask for some exemptions. They're all rural school impacts. There's probably impacts in Harrisburg I can't relate to, in Philly I can't relate to. When we pass these state laws, the rural impact is very, very difficult for us to manage and hold account. So I don't know if there's exemptions. I don't know if you can break it into class, 1, 2, 3 schools. But I would just ask for our folks who support us to make sure we don't forget about the rural schools. Thank you. I don't believe so.
Melinda, could you come up and address the formula? You had some thoughts about the formula itself. Melinda Knapp is the Chief Financial Officer for the Mifflin County School District. She wanted to make a few comments on the formula itself and the flaws.
Hi there. Yeah, I just wanted to point out for those in the room who might not have the opportunity to dive into the weeds and actually see the nuts and bolts of the formula. I mean, it's truly flawed. As our board sits around every year and we look line by line when we go into our budget, I mean, we're truly looking at line by line at our costs, what we can do to save money, and what we're going to do to control the cost each year. There are things that we can't, control. There are mandates that we have no control over. But even if we have a modest 2% increase in our budget, that affects our charter school costs for the next year. Our budget for each year becomes the numerator in the charter school formula. The denominator is our enrollment, our ADMs, our average district membership. So as our enrollment declines, which is happening statewide, more than half of the districts in the Commonwealth are experiencing a decline in enrollment. As the denominator goes down, your numerator goes up, our charter school tuition is just going to naturally increase each year, even as we make every effort to keep our budget, at a modest increase. So as we look at things that we can't control, like PSERS, healthcare, we have our teachers' contract increases. As we manage those costs to the best of our ability, the charter school rates just naturally go up as a result of those costs. And also a factor of it that we can't control is the blend of the students. So in the formula, it takes 16% of your ADM, and it says that is the amount that's going to be allocated to the special ed rate, which is about double. So the formula is, it's just a blanket 16%. So regardless of what the actual enrollment in your district is for special ed, it's 16% is what the formula says. So as the blend of your charter school enrollment, special ed to regular ed changes, that impacts your costs significantly as well. In the district, our special ed rate is about $24,800. Our regular ed rate is around $9,900. So the special ed rate is more than double. So just the specific flaws in the formula, it's growing exponentially. It compounds, and there's just we have no control over that. It's just a flawed formula.
And Melinda would know she is a CPA as well. I'd like to thank everybody for your attendance today. I would like to offer that if Susan from Education Voters, or Mark from PASA, or Joe from PARS, I know you didn't come with the intent of making comment, but if you feel as though you'd like to make any comment, you are welcome. Do any of you want to make a statement? We're going to try to wrap up.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to all the school officials who came out today to speak about this very, very important issue. At PASA, we have been working hard over the years to try to impart upon the legislature that this now about 22-year-old charter school law needs tremendous reform, especially with the funding mechanism. And you heard all the details today. So our organization has never been against online learning. We are not against the whole issue of cyber learning. We do want, though, is accountability. We want transparency. We want fairness in the formula. And we want to make sure everyone is playing by the same rules. And we think we can get that accomplished if more items like this or more activities like this are put forth where everyone truly understands what is going on. And if we can get this message out to our constituents, not only the legislators, but the parents, the grandparents, the business members of our communities, the people who you interact with every single day, and they in turn get that message out to the legislators. We believe we can make some inroads and make a true difference and get some changes in this law. So Jim, thank you so much for putting this together today, and we look forward to working with you and all the superintendents and school leaders in this region and throughout the state.
Thank you. And so I'm Susan Spica with Education Voters of Pennsylvania. I live in Shippensburg, and I was on a school board for 4 years, and so I understand your pain as you go through the budgets. And I just want to say thank you to all the school leaders and school officials who came out today, because you're busy, you have really hard jobs, and then you took your time out to do this advocacy on top of that, which is really extraordinary. So Education Voters is a statewide organization. We work with parents and community members in every county, even Sullivan County. We have people everywhere. And so what I'd like to do is just say, I'm here, and Ed Voters is here to help talk to your parents and your community members so that you are not bearing this entire burden on your own shoulders, so that we can get people to come on and stand behind you, to help you to lift up this issue in your communities, because I think that the biggest issue is what Mr. Estep said at the beginning, like people just don't really understand what's going on. They see cuts in schools, they see their taxes go up, and they don't understand that what's happening is that in Harrisburg there is this charter school law that is broken that needs to be fixed. And fixing that charter school law can make things better in your communities and make things better for your children. So I have cards, and you can contact me. I'm happy to come up and talk to parents anytime you want. But thank you for your leadership, because this is really a very exciting time. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but in Norristown, down in southeastern Pennsylvania, 31 superintendents came together from some of the wealthiest, largest school districts to say exactly what you are saying here. Like, the time is now, this needs to happen, the legislature needs to act. So it's an exciting time, and I'm really excited that we're all part of this together. So thank you.
Again, we want to thank everybody. At this time, we can take some questions if anybody has any. And I do want to encourage the school representatives around here. All of you deal with parent-teacher organizations in your school district. I'd like to see Susan have to put more mileage on her car. She's offering to come speak to your parents. Invite her. She'll come. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, I want to thank all of my colleagues for speaking up today. I see many of you brought board members who didn't necessarily speak, but you're here to support us. And superintendents and board members are a team of 10. So I'm very proud to note that I have 2 board members here today. I have some community members who've chosen to show up, and I'm very grateful for that. And I know that all of you are busy, as was said earlier. But thank you for taking time out to come and hear about this. It is a real problem, and there are real solutions, but it's going to take real political activism and political willpower to make it change. And I can tell you from my perspective, there's one bill out there right now. It's called HB 1897 from Representative Kurt Sonny from the Erie area. That bill alone would save Mifflin County School District something like $350,000 or $400,000 a year. If I could save that much per year, I could reinstate a program that was lost back in 2010 or 11 or 12 when the economy turned down. We had been receiving funds over $300,000 to provide before and after school tutoring programs in our school district. A lot of us had that funding, and it was stripped out of the state budget. $300,000 or $400,000 could allow me to reinstate that and help kids. So these are real dollars that make a real difference. Thank you.